Okay. Right.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome.
Oh, sorry. I was rushing. I was hard to get in, so glad that I'm not.
Okay. Is someone speaking, or can I start the meeting? Okay, right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the London Borough of Newham Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can everyone hear me? If you can, kindly raise your hands like so. Thank you. This evening's meeting will be held virtually via Zoom. The Council has decided that while we are in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, public meetings will be held virtually for the meantime to keep councillors, officers, and members of the public as safe as possible. Members of the public will be able to view this meeting via Newham's Facebook Live and on Council's Facebook page. For this meeting, we will be aided by Roger Raymond and Richard Plummer to assist councillors and officers with the technology. May I ask members to note that they must raise their hands in order to indicate that they wish to speak. I would also like to remind members that if a vote is taken at any time, it will be by way of raising your hands like so, in order that we can capture this on screen. I also want to note that I have invited members of the Budget Working Party to this meeting, similar to other recent committee meetings concerning budget and budget matters. The meeting of the London Borough of Newham Overview and Scrutiny is now called to order. Welcome, everyone. Item 2, apologies for absence. Is there any apologies for absence?
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
Hi, Roger Raymond, Councillor Dahoud and Alan Kemp have given their apologies.
Yeah. The clerk would note apologies from Councillor Dawood and co-optee Ellen Kemp. Declaration of interest. Is there any interest to be declared by any member? The clerk would note that there's no interest to be declared by any member at this meeting. Minutes of our meeting held on September 2nd and 15th September 2020. The minutes can be found on page 7 to 26. I move as a correct record the minutes of the last two meetings of the London Borough of Newham Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 2nd of September and 15th September. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Aisha Chaudhry. Thank you. The clerk would note that Councillor Chaudhry seconded. Before I go in to the substantive items of this agenda, can I ask members to agree an agenda change that is moving item 6 to item 5 and vice versa, item 5 to item 6? Is that agreed by colleagues?
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Again, before I invite the mayor and our team regarding item 6, I would like to introduce myself formally and the members of the scrutiny team. I am Councillor Anthony McCormick, Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I also have Councillor Daniel Lee Parker, Chair a Scrutiny Chair, Councillor Alicia Chaudhry, a Scrutiny Chair, Councillor John Whitworth, a Scrutiny Chair, Councillor Ken Clark, Councillor Alam Islam, and Councillor Susan Masters present with us today. I would now ask the Mayor to introduce our team before we go into the substantive item.
Thank you very much, Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, Anthony McColman, and hello to all members of Overview and Scrutiny and members of the public that are watching today's proceedings of Overview and Scrutiny. Just by way of introduction, I'm the Mayor of Newham, Roxana Fiaz, and we have assembled for the purposes of agenda item 6, which is the council performance position, which is right that scrutiny looks into and scrutinises. We've assembled a team of cabinet leads, corporate directors, and of course Althea Loderick, the chief executive, who alongside myself ensures that we provide the organisational and political leadership oversight on performance management issues as they pertain to each service area, the accountabilities required by cabinet members, but the overall picture in order to ensure that the organisation is one that is fit for purpose for meeting the requirements of the organisation and delivery of manifesto commitments. I'll invite the relevant cabinet members and corporate directors and Althea to introduce themselves through the chair, if that's okay, Anthony, unless you wanted for me to name them.
I think it would be better for you to name them, Madam Mayor. That would be quicker. And before they speak, they will then introduce themselves.
All right, brilliant. So we have Althea Loderick, the Chief Executive, and then going in order as I can see them on the screen, we have Councillor Sarah Ruiz, who's a Cabinet Member Lead for Children's Services, alongside her Deputy Cabinet Member, Councillor Carleen Lee Parkway, that are being supported by various officers that I'll come to in a moment. Then we have Officer Tim Aldrich. Thank you very much for appearing, Tim. We've also got Officer James Partis, who is the director under whom performance sits and is overseen by the corporate director, Jessica Crow. We also have with us this evening other officers pertaining to the performance function, and they'll be able to introduce themselves in due course.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that. So as it's been said before, this segment of the meeting would be focusing on the council's performance. Do you have any introductory remarks regarding this before we go into questions?
Thank you very
or
much.
The Chief Exec?
Yeah, I'm very conscious of time and I'll make a few introductory remarks. So colleagues and residents and members of the public that are watching, the context with regards to the quarterly performance reports, which come frequently to Cabinet every quarter, is a key dimension of our good governance and transparency agenda under the administration that I lead. It has to be stated from the outset. When I stepped into office back in May 2018, there was no semblance of a corporate plan that had been in existence within the council for several years. It was one of the urgent areas that the independent external experts in the form of CITFA identified as we commissioned them to undertake an analysis and review of the council's budget position, and is a key dimension of our improvements that we've put into place with regards to the governance and oversight regime that is a requirement, an accountability requirement for all corporate directors, including the chief executive, but more importantly, for the political leadership led by me and other members of the cabinet. We had the first iteration of the corporate plan and the corresponding performance framework, which was published in line with the 2019-20 budget in March of that financial year. And it was very much understood as a transitional corporate plan and performance framework, because we were needing to continue our interrogation of the performance metrics that had been used to shape that new performance framework linked to that interim transitional corporate plan. And then we went through a process in the period 2019 to 2020 to set a 3-year corporate plan and corresponding performance framework, which was enhanced and improved. And this is something that every single corporate director and cabinet lead uses as part of their respective responsibilities as the senior officer and political leadership of each service area, to making sure that we're on track with regards to the corporate plan, to identifying issues that remain challenging, and to delve deeper and understand what those systemic or cultural issues are that are impeding progress against the performance measurements that are required. It's a performance framework that also links to not only the unique characteristics of Newham and the challenges, as well as the requirements that are demanded of the organisation in terms of meeting manifesto commitments. It also links with performance metrics that are assessed and enable an assessment of a local authority's position vis-a-vis other local authorities. And then obviously, as we set the 3-year corporate plan in line with the 3-year MTFS strategy earlier this year in March, that came to full council, and prior to that was passed cabinet, we were challenged by COVID-19. And as set out in some of the material that's been provided to the members of Overview and Scrutiny, we took a decision to pause the monitoring of key, we paused the process, albeit we continued to with the monitoring and oversight of performance, because we also wanted to understand the impact that COVID-19 would have on performance. But what we also did very early on, we recognised that COVID-19 would have a significant and profound implication, as well as set of challenges for the organisation. And as part of our thinking around the COVID-19 recovery and reorientation strategy towards a better Newham, we began work in earnest in developing a new corporate plan, which has also been provided to all members of Overview and Scrutiny, with a corresponding upgraded and enhanced performance framework that is fit for purpose for the reality of the times that we live in. So I'm going to conclude there by ending with this. The measures that we've put in place since May 2018 are absolutely a reversal of what used to exist or not exist before. It's in line with what a healthy and normal corporate organisation the size of Newham Council should have embedded as part of its systems, its processes, and an integral part of the cultural practice of officers, as well as the political leadership, covering the different portfolio areas. And I'm pleased with the fact that we've put in place this regime, and it's enabled us to illuminate on areas requiring further focus, further interrogation, further improvements, as well as demonstrating the impact that we're having on the auspices of this administration and a new corporate management team who, in the period that they've all been imposed, have taken forward the absolute seriousness required a diligence and focus on performance matters, because ultimately at the end of the day, performance is not just some nebulous concept, it's performance in order to demonstrate in a material, quantitative way, positive impacts for our new residents in the way that we are transforming the council, our services, and the end service for Newham residents. Thank you very much, Chair.
So, that's welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I would go in. I know the Chief Executive would want to come in at some stage. Can you indicate when you want to do so, Chief Executive Altier? I will then go into questions from members regarding the papers that were sent, and they are from page, I'll just remind members of the pages that we'll be looking at this from page 77 to 108 on the agenda pack. Is there any member? I've noticed Councillor Masters in that order, Councillor Clark, and Latmini Shaw. Councillor.
Yeah. If I can start with priority one, making Newham the best place for children and families. I'm concerned that only 9.2% of education, health and care plans were issued on time against a target of 75%. Now, is that COVID-19? Is that a problem with those plans across the board? How do we benchmark against the rest of London? And what's the reason for this ginormous, what looks like a ginormous discrepancy?
Chair, would you like me to answer each question in turn and bring in the relevant officer and cabinet lead if they're available, be it we don't have a cabinet member for education?
Okay, you, Madam Chair, do not have to answer the question if you have one of your colleagues who can do that, be it a member or an officer who might be able to answer that question. It would then save us on time, because what I want to avoid is you answering the question and then someone else reiterating the same information that we've been given. And also, by way of direction, I'm hoping to conclude this segment of the business by 8 o'clock so that we can then go on to budget monitoring. So we have 40 minutes or so left on this segment.
Okay, so with regards to a response to Councillor Masters' question, I will direct this to Tim Aldridge, and over to you, Tim.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Masters, do you mind repeating your question? Just I didn't catch it all.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the proportion of education, health and care plans issued on time, which is only 9.2% against a target of 75%. And I'm just asking whether that was purely down to COVID-19 or whether there are deeper explanations in how we benchmark against other London boroughs.
Thank you, Councillor Masters. It's a combination of the impact of COVID-19, but it's also about a deeper, more underlying challenge. Although the education, health and care plans were part of the 2014 Act, Newham was slow historically to respond to that change in legislation. That has in turn led to a backlog of children who require an education, health and care plan. Now, the number of education, health and care plans that were completed both last year and this year certainly exceeds dramatically the numbers that were completed in previous years. But as a result, that has had an impact on timeliness due to that backlog. There is an improvement plan in place, and that improvement plan was reviewed over the last 6 weeks. And there is an executive board that oversees the overall improvements across the SEND service. There are plans also to to ensure that we are working together as a partnership, because this is not just a local authority function, but it's also a health function, and clearly includes schools as well. So there is a piece of work going on across partnership to look at how we make that step change in terms of improving both performance, but also outcomes for children who have special educational needs or disabilities. And that's also part of our preparation for an area inspection of SEND that we're expecting at some point next year.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Clark, then Councillor Shaw.
Affordable housing in the first quarter, which we appear to have managed none, nil. And I also noticed in 2019-2020, we only built 45, I think it is from memory. Can I just ask, that obviously isn't a great success. What plans do you now have to try and improve that programme and start reaching your original target that you had in your original pledges?
So, Councillor Clark, the interesting question very much echoes a question that was posed full council last month, and there's quite a comprehensive response in that, which I would encourage you to read, because the interpretation in the way that you've presented doesn't actually reflect a reality of the considerable work that's been undertaken with starts of homes at social rent levels, very much in line with maintaining the commitment of 1,000 homes at social rent levels, and working through our assessment of our land asset, which areas of land we're able to unlock our housing delivery linked to the development of a coherent strategic housing delivery plan. So the manifesto pledge is definitely on course and being delivered with regards to 1,000 homes at social rent levels. At the end of year one, the pledge was to start 100. Over 200 had been started, over 50, so we actually doubled the number of starts by the end of year one. And under the auspices of the Affordable Homes for Newham programme, we're absolutely on course to be delivering just over the 1,000 homes at social rent level pledge by March 2022. And there's been various briefings provided to members over the past 2 years with regards to the delivery of that programme. In addition, there is the redevelopment process underway programme with regards to Carpenter's estate, and the commitment made in the manifesto with regards to 50% of all homes that will be created on the site will be at social rent levels. And most recently, there was a cabinet paper pertaining to the position of the high rises, which I would encourage you to read. So with due respect, the question that you pose doesn't actually reflect a reality. I'm more than happy to provide a written response with all the detail, but just to say housing delivery has commenced in a very positive way, and we're accelerating at pace.
Thank you.
If I may, Chair.
Just one supplementary, Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's just as I'd welcome to see that report if you'd like to produce it for me. But also my other supplementary is the basis. Do you think coronavirus will have any impact upon those targets?
So as you would expect, with regards to all aspects of the council's performance and service delivery, every single area of our manifesto delivery is being monitored closely. And as with the entire housing sector in London and elsewhere, there had been a period where schemes had to pause for a short period during the first lockdown. There's been assessments and analysis with regards to our housing delivery programme, the Affordable Homes for Newham programme, Carpenter's Estate, Custom House, the Canning Town development programme. And at this moment in time, officers and myself and the Cabinet are confident that we will meet that manifesto pledge.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Latmini Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. This is also on housing. Like you, Madam Mayor, all my colleagues in this meeting will agree that our fundamental vision is to build self-sufficient communities. In your priority 2, building communities, a housing offer for residents that delivers more genuinely affordable homes in well-designed neighborhoods. So I'd like to know, what does affordable mean to our residents? Because there are young professionals in our borough who cannot afford to buy a house. How will you be supporting these young people or young residents, young professionals? And what is the benchmark where we say, yes, this house is affordable for them to buy? What is your vision for them?
So the ultimate vision is for the council to be the principal driver of a quantum number of homes to address the housing crisis facing our residents. We have, as you know, some 27,500 residents of ours on our housing waiting list, which is a historical legacy that we are needing to manage and deal with. And we are dealing with that through a review of our allocations policy, because we've got to be very frank, very realistic with our residents as to the reality of them being able to access council homes at social rent levels. We have a situation also where we have 68% of our resident population living in the private rented sector. So there's a tranche of work that we've been doing in terms of improving the rights of those residents in the private rented sector. And we've got the landlord licensing scheme, which is going through a review to enhance its proficiency and efficacy. We also have, with regards to our temporary accommodation position, one of the worst in London and one of the worst in the country. We have 5,500 families living in temporary accommodation, comprising of 7,500 children. That's more than the entire north of England combined. We are very much at the coalface of a housing crisis that was not created under this administration. It was not created by Newham residents. It is a creation of both national, regional and local dynamics at play. We remain committed to ensuring that the houses that we build through a significant and radical municipal driven housing programme.
Can I ask that you shorten some of the answers, Madam Mayor? We have a lot to get through.
With due respect, Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Anthony McColeman, you cannot reduce a significant housing crisis facing 28,000 of our residents in 2 minutes, unfortunately. It's a really important question. I'm happy to provide a full written answer, but if I may just conclude. So yeah. We are at the coalface of a desperate and raging housing crisis, and we are doing a lot with regards to responding to that. We are one of the country's largest landowners. We're looking at all the land that we own to see how we can unlock that in order to deliver council-led municipal house building. We've repurposed the housing delivery vehicle, Popolo Living. It's tasked with redevelopment of the Carpenter's Estate. It's, you know, we've got a team that we've recalibrated to drive Custom House. we've got so much housing that is being in the pipeline that will be delivered. And as for your answer or question with regards to what does affordable, genuinely affordable mean? You have London living rent that is set by the Mayor of London, and that's slightly in small percentage terms higher than localized social rent. So social rent is based on a localized formula that we apply with regards to the houses that we're building at social tenure. And then on top of that, we have stock of 16,000 council homes, and we're undergoing the most significant refurbishment of all of those homes for a generation. And we are also supplementing that and anchoring that with a coherent strategic housing delivery strategy. So in answer to your question, Lukmini, the homes that we are building at social rent levels will be genuinely affordable, will be at social rent levels that our residents can afford. There needs to be a wider national discussion and a London-wide discussion around how we can, as public authority, public bodies, the state, intervene in a skewed market that is pushing and marginalising hard-working families outside of owning or even being able to afford living in the private rented sector, because the costs of housing
Can we round up now, please?
are really, really high relative to the incomes that households have.
Thank you. At this stage, I've noticed Councillor Pepiot, and I will bring you in. Before I go on, can I request Richard or Roger to give me access to chat with individual members? So it would enable me to acknowledge them. So please, can I have access to do so? As a committee, we met and we came up with some key lines of inquiries. And so at this stage, before I bring in Councillor Pepiot, don't forget what questions you have, Councillor Pepiot. I would like to go onto some of the key lines of inquiries and then come back to questioning from members. Do we have Clive? If he's not available, can one of the officers, Adrian or one of you, read the key lines for us, please?
Just bear with me, Chair.
Whilst Adrian is waiting to do so, I will bring in Councillor Pepiot.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on the survey, the Newham survey, and it's reported that there's an increase of 16% in those who are worried in the last year, between 2018 and 2019, about becoming a victim of crime in their local area. Could someone say why they think that has gone up so significantly in the last, between 2018 and 2019?
Chair, through the chair, if I can invite Jamie Blake to respond to that question. And just to add, before you come in, Jamie, this is a picture that's reflected across other local authorities in London. There's an important distinction between reality and perception and the fear of crime, which is rightly something that we need to respond to vis-a-vis actual statistics and what they're pointed to. So Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie, can you introduce yourself, your job role, and then take the question, please?
Certainly, Chair. So Jamie Blake, I'm the Corporate Director of Environment and Sustainable Transport, and under that brief I also pick up all the community safety department. So yes, I mean the crime figures do fluctuate significantly. If you take your benchmark a couple of years before that, Councillor, I think most of the large volume crime rates have decreased. We saw a significant decrease in crime rates during the first wave of COVID. A number of those crimes have since picked up. I'm pleased to say that at the moment, and I've met with the Borough Commander a couple of weeks ago, he's got quite a lot of staff now to deploy, although some of his time is being taken up through the regulations around the COVID lockdown that we're in at the moment. He has got quite a significant number of new staff that have been deployed to the BCU. It's certainly in discussions, he's confident that he can deploy enough staff during this area, during this particular time, to help us in our efforts to make sure that people follow the current lockdown rules, as well as getting on top of some of the key volume crimes, certainly in some of the hotspots we've got around the Stratford area, and also some of the more organised crimes that we've got across the borough. There's quite a lot of information, if you haven't already picked up, within the community safety partnership work that goes on, and I'm happy to provide any other data that members might think is appropriate.
So you're basically saying there's nothing specific, you understand the way you see it, between 2018 and 2019 that accounts for the 16% increase. It wouldn't be anything to do with, as you argue, the reduction in the number of police officers that the council has deployed in that year.
Are you talking about the council's deployment? Or
as you know, the council used to buy some police officers. Obviously, they've reduced significantly, and that's obviously a decision for the mayor to do. But that, as you argue, it has not fed into the increase about the victim, people who are worried because they don't see police officers on the street as much because there aren't as many deployed through the council funding as before.
I think it would be very difficult to link the two together, Councillor, and I don't know how we would be able to do that. There's been an overall reduction in the Metropolitan Police Force going back a number of years now. But as I said, certainly the BCU at the moment are confident that they're putting more numbers out than they certainly have for the past 6-7 years. So the total number of police that are deployed within the borough are certainly more than they were 5 or 6 years ago. Absolutely take on your point that we've reduced the number that were directly purchased from the council, but they were also reduced because you remember that the Metropolitan Police at one point were doing a buy one get one free arrangement with local authorities, which the borough did avail itself of, but that also came to the end last year.
And sorry, Chair, if I may, just to add, just as a correction or clarification, the decisions pertaining to the officers that Councillor Peppiatt refers to is a decision that's made by myself as the Mayor and the Cabinet, because we moved to collective decision making back in November 2018, and I would hate for members of Overview and Scrutiny to be, to misunderstand actually the locus of decision making amongst the political leadership. It's collective decision making that takes place during formal cabinet with myself as the Mayor and other cabinet members.
Thank you. Okay, in terms of the key lines of inquiries, one of our key lines of inquiry is probing the impact that the corporate plan has had on performance within the council. You would recall that when you came into office, you introduced the corporate plan. You also spoke about working and changing the culture and the way we do things in the council. Can you tell us from 2018 to now if you've seen any positive impact, and if so, it would be helpful if you can signpost us or reference some of those for the benefit of this committee and the viewing public.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I remember that first meeting well. It was one of the first meetings Althea attended in her role as Chief Executive, albeit you did also meet with her predecessor, who was the interim Chief Executive, as we were working through this piece. It would be best placed for Althea to respond to the impact that the cultural change programme that is represented through the framework of the heart values and what impact that is having amongst our staff team cohort across the organisation. And then I'll conclude with a real life current example by way of illuminating the investment that we're making in our staff and how that is leading to a real change in cultural practice within the organisation.
Good, thank you. And before you come in, Chief Exec, time is really going and it's against us. It's now 18 minutes to the hour, and we say therefore we have 18 minutes more. We have a lot to go. We have questions to come in, so we'd have to make these as succinct as possible. And I would then ask for written responses to the remaining key lines of inquiries that we may not get through. Over to you, Chief Exec.
Thank you, Chair. So in answer to the question, the impacts, and I think a number of pieces of information have been circulated to committee members, so hopefully you can refer to those for some more depth. But taking your steer on brevity, the impact has been felt across the council. We've undertaken a number of exercises with our staff, we've had feedback from residents about the difference that they're experiencing from the perspective of culture change, as the Mayor has already referred to, the new heart values. You will see them being not only represented across a number of aspects of our communications and our collateral, but it's become very much the language of the council. So those heart values being honesty, equality, ambition, respect, and together. And that's become very much, as I say, our lexicon for how we speak about what we're doing and how we're really bringing to life people at the heart of everything we do. Staff are volunteering feedback. There are lots of messages on the intranet about how they're experiencing things differently. They value the communication they receive. They value having much more of an interaction with the corporate management team and the organisation more widely. We've had feedback from areas of the council where previously they had felt they had been perhaps neglected or not seen as important and as significant as some other parts of the council, to say that they now do feel part of Newham Council. They feel that they're part of one council achieving good things and aiming to achieve even better things for our residents. So as I say, there are a number of measures. There's, in addition to those aspects around the culture change programme, which is under an umbrella of Changing Together, which has a number of strands, and as I say, happy to provide more written information. We've also seen in work in practice a huge step forward with the work that's been done through the Smarter Newham programme, where we've managed to be, I mean, if you look at just the response to COVID-19 and how quickly we were able to deploy devices and ways of working that allowed most of our staff to carry on doing their roles remotely, and indeed supported you as members to carry on conducting your civic functions remotely through the deployment, the rapid deployment of the sorts of kit and equipment that we originally wouldn't have thought we'd have had in place for many, many months to come. But as I say, I'm conscious of your steer around brevity and wanting to get through, so I won't prolong my answer, but just to say the feedback is one means of taking evidence, or one means of evidence to show that the culture change is being felt, and that's very spontaneous. The much more interaction, communication, two-way dialogue is underway. We have a number of sessions that enable that to happen. I often receive feedback from residents directly about their experience of dealing with the council improving, and even where things have gone wrong, being grateful of the response that they've received, that their issues are being taken seriously. And of course there is the as I say, the Smarter Newham programme and the way in which we've radically changed the way we work and remained connected, even at a time when it would have been so easy to become disconnected and disparate in our approach. We've still managed to maintain a very much one council approach to how we operate and who we are. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Before I bring in any member, and I think that answer dead more or less with key lines of inquiry 6 and 7. Richard would read for us key lines of inquiry 8. Richard?
Yep, that's not a problem, Chair. One moment. Yes, so the committee would like to probe the comprehensive assessment of COVID-19 on delivery of the corporate plan, as mentioned in the council performance report. One of the supplementaries will be, would there be a shift in focus and any growth, will there be any shift in focus and any growth or innovation policy casualties as a result of this shift? And thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chair. May I answer, Chair?
Yes, you may. And
yes,
because of time, 2 minutes, please.
You know, obviously the COVID-19 impact has been significant and great, and it naturally has had a impact in terms of the delivery of the corporate plan as it was and as it was finalised for the purposes of the March formal cabinet earlier this year and what was brought to full council subsequently. And as I mentioned in some of my introductory remarks, we've recalibrated the corporate plan in line with a really important document that's going to be coming to full council next week, which is the Towards a Better Newham Recovery and Reorientation Strategy, which sets out 8 pillars to help us through these challenging times and beyond. And there's a corresponding recalibrated corporate plan and performance framework that will sits alongside that. In terms of any growth or innovation policy casualties, in the context of growth casualties, we're working through the budget position and Overview and Scrutiny will be commencing its formal budget working group in order to examine aspects of that. But what we know is this in relation to any growth impact, where we are able to maintain those growth items, we will, and it's really important as part of our rebuilding trust with our residents that we stick to those manifesto pledges and deliver on them. Secondly, in terms of innovation policy casualties, due to this, actually COVID-19 has accelerated innovation, and my position generally is, as shared by the corporate management team and other members of the cabinet as well as the chief executive, is the way in which we were intending to do things may not be possible now, but let's innovate and find a way around them. And I'm really pleased to say the Towards a Better Newham Recovery Strategy and Action Plan that was published and passed cabinet the other week is very much heading in the right focus direction. Jessica, is there anything, and this is through the chair, you would like to add to that?
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, I think it will be really worth looking at the recovery and reorientation strategy and also the corporate delivery plan that is attached as an appendix to that strategy, because what that has sought to do is take the new requirements on the council to respond to the pressures and challenges of COVID-19 and help the borough recover and pivot in what it's doing, but has also gone through with a fine-tooth comb the existing corporate plan and sort of meshed those two things together. So we can be confident that anything that we were planning to do that has not been changed or amended as a result of the recovery strategy is also carried forward from the previous corporate plan into that corporate delivery plan, and that will form the basis for a really clear set of metrics and actions that we can report against going forward in future quarters. So that there's a significant amount of detail in that corporate delivery plan appendix, which really does cover all of the actions, whether amended as a result of the recovery plan or carried forward from the previous corporate plan. So we've sought to build on what was there, but we have had to absolutely respond, and as the Mayor said, have been able to deliver some things in different ways, but innovating. So the Smarter Newham has been mentioned, moving, shifting services wholly online, bringing benefits to how staff work, and a range of other things. And members might remember we had budget growth that was agreed by council to invest in our relationship with the voluntary and community sector. Whilst we haven't taken that forward in exactly the same way, we have absolutely had a step change in working with the voluntary and community sector because of the collective effort of the borough to respond to COVID and support residents. So that relationship, that the actual outcome, I would say, has really taken a step forward. So there's been kind of unlooked for innovation that has paradoxically been enabled by the response to the pandemic, but otherwise other actions that were anticipated have all been carried forward to be delivered.
Thank you. I know Councillor Masters is waiting to come in, and key lines of inquiry 9, I would take. The other key lines of inquiry I would defer, but it's key lines of inquiry 10, rough sleeping, because we have adult social care, we have public health later on in this month. We can deal with some of these there. We have the RMS, we can deal with that later on because we have them coming in to talk to us. Street cleaning, we can, I know we're going to be seeing James. We can then deal with that. One source is coming to see us on Friday, so we can deal with it then. So we can defer some of those to later on in this week and the week after, which is on the 20th. But I would go back to key lines of inquiry 9. In terms of saving time, this key lines of inquiry is seeking to probe the council's community well-building policy and how this will be developed in light of the pandemic. Who would want to take that?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes.
I'll make some remarks. Simply put, we essentially have published, we've done it, we've published the COVID-19, the Towards a Better Newham Recovery and Reorientation Strategy that was published way back in July. The 6th of July was the date of publication and launch. And then, as mentioned in response to a previous question, last week we actually adopted at the cabinet, formal cabinet meeting, the corresponding Towards a Better Newham Recovery Reorientation action plan. Now, the key points that are really significant about those two documents, and as they have relevance to the key line of inquiry question that you probed and you are probing, is that it builds on the community wealth building strategy that was launched in January 2020, which was preceded by the inclusive economy strategy, which was passed at cabinet back in December 2019. The crucial difference is the Towards a Better Newham Recovery and Reorientation Strategy, whilst building on community wealth building, and as you all recollect and remember, community wealth building is absolutely about addressing poverty, addressing inequality, tackling climate emergency, and making sure that we build a borough where there are opportunities that are accessible for all of our residents. The crucial thing about the Towards a Better Newham Recovery and Reorientation Strategy, that at its centre, it building on the community wealth building and inclusive economy strategies, is that it includes and puts absolutely at the centre, number one, the prominence and the importance that we're placing on the happiness, health and well-being of our residents as a consequence of COVID-19, and the disproportionate impact because of poverty and deprivation and inequality that has existed for too long. The prominence that we're giving on the health and well-being of our residents as the key measure of our success. That's pillar number one. The additional thing that is really significant about building on the community wealth building policy, which has been published, it's not a discussion that we're still having, it's there as an action plan that we will execute over the next 6 to 12 to 24 months and going beyond. It is profoundly important that this is recognised. The COVID-19 recovery reorientation strategy towards a better Newham has 8 pillars anchored by those pre-existing commitments to community wealth building, principles and values. But more than that, it's also about challenging the systemic issues of racial inequality that exists in this borough and elsewhere. So I commend all members of Overview and Scrutiny to read from front cover to back the COVID-19 recovery strategy that was provided to you all prior to this meeting, but more importantly, the action plan, because the action plan has helped inform the new corporate plan and the new performance frameworks against which I will be, as the Mayor, holding account every single cabinet member, and the Chief Executive, as the Chief Executive, will be holding to account every single corporate management team, and the entire organisation will be working towards that end of delivery. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And by way of correction, I mentioned James, and I know James might be wanting to know why is he coming to talk about RMS. It's not James, it's Ausin. We'll be speaking about that later on. So James, Asa, I didn't mean to mention you. That was a mistake. Okay, I'm going to now bring in, because she's been waiting for a very, very long time, Councillor Masters, and then Councillor Chaudhry, and then that's it. I may push it. What's the time? Wow. I may push it to Councillor Whitworth if it's going to be very quick, but Councillor Whitworth, I reserve the right to not bring you in if time is moving on. So Councillor Masters.
I wanted to pick up on towards a better Newham, because I've been reading a lot about our business position today. And what I saw was that we've got a lot of businesses, but they tend to be on quite a low level. They don't tend to scale up. There's a lot of churn. It's great that we're sort of putting money into businesses, but I'm just wondering, how much do we know about what's going on at the moment? Are these businesses taking place in the right kind of areas, and do people have the right kind of advice? And when we're sort of offering them this support, is there a way of sort of ensuring that when we do get this sort of wonderful economy we're hoping to sort of develop, and we've skilled up our young people, that wealth stays in Newham and they don't sort of up sticks and sort of head off to other parts of London and beyond?
Thank you very much, and through the chair, very, very pertinent question. So if you go back to the inclusive economy strategy that was published and adopted by formal council in December 2019, you will note in that document an analysis of the Newham local economy. And what was really evident as part of an absence of a coherent local economic strategy for a number of years that didn't sufficiently link with what was happening in the wider London-wide economy and the trajectory of the London-wide economy, which has been analysed through the Mayor of London's LEAP board, of which Newham has a place, and I sit on the LEAP board as a consequence of the Royal Docks Enterprise Zone, is that the inclusive economy strategy absolutely understands the trajectory of the London-wide economy, takes into account a whole series of uncertainties, not least the uncertainty of the Brexit impact on the UK economy, and what it is that we need to be doing locally in order to marshal our local economy and shape it so that it is fit for purpose and it is ready for the economic development of London as a global capital city. What we've identified in light of our commitment towards responding to the climate emergency is that we have an opportunity through all the investment coming by the Royal Docks Enterprise Zone, and it's very much built in and baked in to the vision of the Royal Docks, is that Newham will become a hub for London Green's economy. So that is one aspect of how we're repurposing our local economic vision. But obviously, it's a local economic vision that also links to a sub-regional piece, i.e. we are members of Local London, the sub-regional partnership with several other local authorities. We take into account what the LEAP board and its analysis of the London economy and its trajectory and where that's going. And we've also assessed the features of our local economy and which sectors are sustainable over the medium to long term and which aren't, because of the way in which disruption within the global economy and UK PLC economy and the London economy, the disruption that is happening. And what we are working towards through the Towards a Better Newham recovery and reorientation strategy is to pivot the local authority, working with partners, anchor partners, schools, FE sector, higher education sector, so that we become a borough whereby we are drawing in investment from those high skill need industries and sectors that will be sustaining economic growth in the capital. So it's actually in there, there's an evidence base underpinning it. And in terms of the support that we're presently given to existing businesses, which we have analysed, and there's a clear picture in terms of the range of sectors in operation in the borough, which I'm happy to provide information to members of Overview and Scrutiny, and how that's helped inform the reshaping of the workplace and money works piece. What we know, however, as a consequence of COVID-19 and the economic impact, that we are going to be hit really hard. It's going to be brutal. We are going to have an increase of at least 27,000 people unemployed. We've got the highest number of furloughed workers anywhere in the capital. Today, ONS published its unemployment statistics. We're currently doing the analysis in order to add to our understanding and modelling of what the pressures will be on the council and what support we will need to provide. And the entire workplace and money works operation has been reorientated in order to respond to that and supporting businesses. So our primary focus of support for businesses throughout the pandemic so far has been how we've been rerouting money coming from government, how we've been able to spend the discretionary grants that are available to small businesses and how they align to our community wealth building aspirations. And we will and have started having those honest conversations with businesses around how they actually get themselves fit for purpose for the new economic age that we're going to be finding ourselves in. And that has a corresponding impact with regards to how we open up opportunities, skills acquisition, all in line with the lifelong learning piece for our residents in terms of constantly acquiring the skills that they need for the future as well as for today.
A comprehensive answer. Thank you very much. Councillor Chaudhry.
I'll let my colleague, Councillor Whitworth, go ahead because he has more important question than mine. And if I have time, I'll come back. Thank you.
There won't be any more time, Councillor Chaudhry, so that would be it for you. Okay, you're so kind to pass it on. John, can it be quick, please?
That's very generous, Councillor Chaudhry. Thank you. I can ask my question quickly. I don't know if the answer is can be done quickly. If not, perhaps it could be provided later. It's regarding the inclusive economy and the issue of London living wage. The council is committed to becoming a London living wage employer, and of course I'm referring to that with regard to the staff of our contractors. And I realise it's a drawn-out process because it depends on negotiating contracts, new contracts when they fall due. But my question really is, how far are we along the road to becoming a London living wage employer with regard to people working for the council?
Whoever's going to answer this question, please can I ask that it's only done in no more than 2 minutes, no more, because I do need to move on to other agenda items.
All right, thank you very much, Chair. I'm just also seeing which officer can come in on this, but actually the principal officer is coming on to the next agenda item. So look, in a nutshell, we are progressing and we're progressing well. We remain committed to being a London living wage employer. We have that already in place in terms of our staff and also our apprenticeships, our care workers, and we're galvanising a movement of our anchor businesses and small businesses to adopt the same position this week. The London Living Wage Foundation announced its 2020-21 rates for the London living wage, and we're working that into our budget discussions presently. So in a nutshell, we are progressing well. There is both the political and corporate management team commitment to ensure that we meet that that objective. It's not even an aspiration anymore. So we will get there, and I can provide a more detailed response, Councillor John Whitworth, in order to elaborate more.
I'm happy to wait for that response. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. At this stage, I would thank the Mayor, the Chief Executive, and all the supporting officers and members who came along. And for those of you who came but didn't have a chance to make an input, I'm very sorry. Time is against us. Okay, thank you all very much. And I will now move on. There's two substantive items that I want to deal with that is on the agenda. It is going to be the quarterly budget monitoring, and also I would like overview to comment briefly on the proposed protocols, at least before the meeting concludes at 9 o'clock. So I'm just saying that by way of direction so that we can start focusing our minds on what we need to get done. So I will now move on to item 5 of the agenda. Okay. I am delighted to welcome for this segment Councillor Terry Paul and Conrad, and I would ask either Terry or Conrad to briefly introduce their members just by names. Whenever that officer is ready to speak, they will introduce themselves by name and role. Terry, over to you. Conrad, Terry, are we still there?
As well with Terry tonight, with Councillor Paul here tonight. Can you hear us?
I can just about hear you now.
Hold on, we're going to do some mic stuff. Yeah, Terry, I'll sort it. Okay, so thank you, Chair. The committee would have got the financial report as at position 6 from Andrew Ward. So I'm not going to cover the report in detail, but I will pick out some highlights. Obviously, it states at month 6, our overall position is 8.9 million overspend, and that's after allocating 24.2 million of government-related COVID-19 funding. Obviously, the latter part, we've been given an additional 12.6 million, which takes into consideration the deprivation index. What I would say in overview as to about where we are, obviously we've got the pandemic pressure of COVID, which is quite substantial. Underlying that, we've got the business as usual pressures. We are a council, we provide services. We do have a population who do have some challenging needs, and even underpinning those two scenarios, we are at the sort of blunt end of a few years of government-inspired austerity, which has undermined our budget over a period of time. I think the key sections for members is looking at section 3, particularly section 3.2 and 3.3, which sets out, breaks out where some of the spending pressures are. On that note, I know we're short for time, Chair. I will take questions from the committee.
Okay, thank you. We also have some key lines of inquiry that the committee has come up with. But before I go into those, is there any member who is ready to go? If not, we would go onto the key lines of inquiry. I cannot see any indication. So because of time, I would ask Richard.
Sorry, Chair. Lester Hudson's trying to come in.
Okay, sorry, Lester, I didn't notice you there. Lester.
I'm used to that, Chair. I'm used to being ignored. Just a joking, Chair. Just joking. You are very, very nice, Chair. I've just got one question. Well, I've got various questions, but maybe someone can actually help me out with it is 3 general fund pressures, 3.1, the table. And I'm just trying to understand where we are at the present moment in time. And the table 3.1, table 1, and this is on the management accounts for the 6-month review.
Okay.
Yes?
Conrad?
Is everyone with me?
Yes, I am following, Lester. The other committee members are following. Yes.
Okay.
Even I'm following, Lester.
Pardon?
I said, even I'm following you.
What I'm trying to understand is COVID expenditure, COVID grant, and non-COVID overspends. Now, what I'm trying to understand is that broadly, what table 3.1 shows, I think, I am a thick member, is broadly COVID expenditure is broadly equal to COVID grant. There is a shortfall of income, but we've got additional grant to cover that. Not all of it. It's around about 2 million short. So the main issue that strikes me in terms of where we are at the present moment in time are the usual suspects. And the usual suspects, I'm sorry, Sarah, children and young people, homelessness, one source. Is my analysis correct? Because if I am wrong, could you please say where my analysis is incorrect? Because if the issue is the usual suspect.
We understand the question. Conrad will answer it.
So I recognise the analysis that's being presented there, just to make sure that everyone's kind of got the point. Most of the very direct costs of COVID, and by very direct, I mean, for example, PPE and things like that we've clearly had to spend only in response to the pandemic, have been met by the government grant. There is a shortfall, as you rightly identify, on income for a number of areas, where the government scheme, it's slightly more complicated than this, but essentially it funds 70% of the shortfall for eligible expenditure. Just to be clear, some things like commercial rents, for example, the government doesn't fund at all. So that's one area of significant shortfall. Second area of significant shortfall is planned savings for the current year that, for reasons that people will understand, the work that was necessary to be done to deliver those couldn't take place in March and April when it was planned to do so, and there's therefore a delay on those savings. And then the third part, as you identify, there are some persistent pressures in one or two key budgets. Children's services, for example, you mentioned. Homelessness is also another area of considerable pressure. So yes, I mean, the fundamental point you make, I think it's a reasonable way to analyse the overspending pressures that we're facing.
My second question, sorry, Chair, my second question is the £9 million overspend at the present moment. Is it the plan of the administration that is zero by the end of this financial year?
No. I think the answer is this, Councillor Hudson. The government has allowed us to write. There's a treatment where we can use our overspend over the next 3 years. I think is that right, Conrad? 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that with the gap between the financial pressures that have been caused and the government grant that's available, as you identify, 9 million, not all of which is directly related to COVID. The approach, as was set out in the July paper, is to recover that position in terms of the impact it will have on reserves over the following 3 years, which gives rise to a requirement to make savings. Cabinet received a report in October highlighting the financial position, and also requested a report back, which will be going to December Cabinet to show what is being done to drive that forecast down.
Right. Any member, before I go into key lines, sorry, Crowley, I will give, I see Quinton, and then I would come in with the questions, and then we go to some key lines.
Yeah. Dave, just carrying on from where Councillor Hudson made the point, I'm just trying to understand, in another place, it was said that there was £60 million worth of COVID expenditure, and that isn't borne out, I can see the table. So could you explain to me, sorry, let me finish, Councillor Paul, could you explain to me how because I'm sure that figure is right, you know, it's where it probably came from the officers. So how does that relate to the table in terms of the £60 million that was identified as COVID expenditure?
Where is at month 6? The report you're looking at is at month 6. Yeah.
Right.
The report I gave you in the other place is a much more closer figure. That's where the two different figures are different.
So are you saying that whereas Mr. Hall was saying that there was 80%, 70% going to be covered by the government grant, on the £60 million figure, because you've only got 36 million from central government, on that figure it's only roughly 50%, well, just over 50%.
The fundamental position is we're looking at a month 6 position, which is different to the figure we talked about in another place. So let's separate the two things. We're here today to talk about a month 6 position, right? The figure you've got in another place refers to different time periods.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that, but I'm trying to just get where the general position is moving forward, as it will be end of year, because that's the crucial element.
Well, that position, there will be a cabinet paper coming out end of November. It will be debated at cabinet on the 1st of December, and that will be the position at the end of the year in that cabinet paper.
So, but what I'm saying is that it will the expenditure will increase dramatically over this paper, is what you're looking at roughly.
What I'm saying is there will be a cabinet paper in December which will set out the position going to cabinet, and that will be the collation. As you appreciate, the figures are moving all the time.
I know.
And that will be a position. So essentially, where we are, the figures we're looking at in this cabinet report refer to month 6. The figures I talked about in another place was my more up-to-date figure, and that's the figure I'm trying to get to position, and we will get to position, and we're working towards a cabinet paper in December.
Okay, we'll explore it later. Yeah, thank you.
I see you, Lester, but I would come in, and then if there's no one else, I bring you back in. Conrad, and this question is to you.
Chair.
Yes.
I think just to kind of clarify the point that's been made, could I bring Andrew Ward in? Because there are a number of complexities with the figures here, and we're trying to sort of balance providing masses and masses of detail and also tell a kind of clear narrative about the council's financial position. If I could bring Andrew Ward in for a minute or two, he can just clarify the point that Councillor Pepiat has just raised.
Okay, a minute, please. Okay, go on, Andrew.
That's correct. So as Councillor Paul said, the position is constantly changing. We report to MHCLG on a sort of a gross basis as well about the financial impact this year. So in some cases we'll see expenditure costs which have been met by, for example, sort of increased health contributions from CCG partners as well. So it is complex. There are many different sets of figures, but they are consistent. With the 60 million, it is likely that includes the impact on our collection fund this year, which isn't included in the figures that you can see in that table there. The impact on the collection fund won't be felt until the following financial year due to legislation and accounting rules on the collection fund. So we know we'll have a shortfall on local taxation as a result of the pandemic. That is additional to the figures in that table.
Okay. Thank you. Conrad, we had a discussion prior to this meeting, and you were going to bring back a response to me regarding paragraph 18 on the report, the period I'm 6 report or period 5, they're both about the same figures. Have you been able to clarify that? And just for the benefit of the committee, what I wanted to know on paragraph 18 of item 5, it mentioned the 29.8 savings, and if I recollect, that savings would have been over the 3 years budget plus the income generation, and it was going to deal with the 45 or 47 million pounds overspend, and that is during that time. I know the position has changed somewhat, but Conrad was going to find out for me, because he said there that there's going to be a non-delivery of 12.4 million pounds, and I wanted to know whether that was in this financial year or whether it was peaking over this 3 years period. Just wanted some clarification on that.
Thanks. Could I ask Andrew just to clarify that one for you, Councillor?
So I can't quite find the paragraph you're referring to.
It's, paragraph 18, that is the midterm financial statement savings tracker.
Okay, the savings tracker, it has a 29.8 million pounds worth of savings for the current financial year. That is for 2021, that 29.8 million.
So we're talking about this financial year.
Yes.
So basically what came the budget, and during the budget working party process, it was going to be 17.7 million savings, which include income generation and efficiency savings. Are you now saying that you've risen it to 29?
I'm with you now. Can I just dig up my notes and I'll be able to answer that question. I understand the question now.
Okay, whilst you are doing that, can I go back to the table that Lester was referencing? And if we looked at table 1 in paragraph 3.1, it mentions unachieved savings and unachieved other pressures. And when I add them up for period 6, it came to 11.1 million as of now. Is that figure correct in terms of savings that we're not going to be achieving? See, those figures are confusing me.
Chair, what figure are you saying is unachievable? Can you just clarify that?
I'm looking at your papers, and on the same table that Lester was referring to,
right.
if we look
at, hold on, this is table 3.1, table general fund financial pressures. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And which section are you referring to?
I'm referring to the section that says unachieved savings. So if you go down to the total, if you look at the end of period 5, because I can't see period 6 now, period 5 says 7.4 million, and then other pressures, it's at 4.4 million. And you put the other pressures down.
Just to clarify that.
Andrew, can you clarify?
Certainly. So in table 3.1, there are unachieved, in the first column, expenditure, and it says and MFTFS delay. That 26.2 million is the direct costs of COVID-19, but because of how we report it to MHCLG, that also includes those very specific savings actions in adults and health, which could not be achieved. There's absolutely no chance of being achieved due to the impact of COVID. So there were approved savings measures in the adults and health department. In addition to that, you've got 7.2 million pounds of savings across the council, as shown in table 3.1, which haven't been achieved or are delayed at this moment in time, in the context, I would say, of the pandemic. So it's the total of those two figures. And I've got my, I understand your question earlier, Chair, on the 29.8 relating to the 17 million pounds of savings that was approved. If I could just take that. So there were 17.8 million of new savings proposals approved in March. there were £5 million of pre-existing planned savings, so savings that were already in the medium-term financial strategy. That's the rolling 3-year plan that were already planned for 2021. And then as part of the budget setting, I understand that £7 million of planned savings were already in the MTFS for the following financial year. So that's 21-22, which were brought forward into 2021. So that is how the £29.8 million is made up. So 17.8 of new savings proposals approved in March, 5 million of savings already planned for that year in the MTFS, and then 7 million brought forward from 21-22. Is that
okay?
That's clear.
Yes, that explains the figures. Thank you. Okay. And just any member, before I go to key lines.
Leicester, Chair.
Yes, Jim.
Right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Right. I'm just trying to understand where we are. So we're not going to be at 0 at the year end in terms of the variance. So what I'm trying to work out is how much are you going to write off to reserves and how much are you going to implement of the savings? And of the amount that you're going to write off to reserves, to what extent is that one-off, or to what extent is it a recurring problem that we're going to have in the future? I'm just,
okay. So
I'm very, very nervous. We're in November, and I am a nervous backbencher.
Well, it don't look good. Well, look, Conrad's going to give you the answer, Councillor Hudson, but there's no need for your nervousness. What I respect is your diligence, but what I would take from you, and I'll repeat it to my earlier answer, there'll be a report going to Cabinet in December, which will formally report our positions. And as you know from me, Councillor Hudson, I have nothing to hide. The only time I've touched reserves is for capital expenditure, and that, and if we are to change that philosophy of mine, it will be presented. It will be presented there for all to see. At the moment, I have no plans to do that. But Conrad?
So the current forecast, and we'll do everything we reasonably can to reduce it, but the current forecast is at the year end, the council will be £8.9 million overspent on the general fund. It's called, that's rounded up to 9.
Okay, thank you.
The financial strategy that was set out in July is to the extent that there are overspends in the current financial year, largely but not wholly, as we've been discussing, driven by COVID, those will be recovered over a 3-year period. So the consequence of a £9 million overspend, if we're unable to reduce it, is that the council needs to make £3 million in savings, which will then recur year on year, in order to recover that position over a 3-year period. In addition to that, again, as set out in the July report, there's a number of other factors, particularly around local taxation, that are similarly, as a consequence of the pandemic, council's financial position has been affected, and the intention is to recover those over a 3-year period, which is consistent with the government guidance and legislation.
Sorry. When you say 3-year period, are you saying next financial year, which will be the final year of this administration, the first year of the next administration, and then the second year of the next administration? So are you saying that there will be a £3 million effective cut that you're making into the second year of the new administration? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, I mean, that's normal. Well, it's normal practice. Obviously, all things are completely abnormal as a result of the pandemic. But the financial strategy calls for recurring savings to be delivered to recover the position over a 3-year period. So that would cover the financial years 2021-22, 2022-23, and 2023-24.
Thank you. I would bring in Councillor Lee Parkway, and then I would go on to some key lines of inquiries. Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is to Councillor Paul. I think it's more of a political question, and I just want to make sure that I've understood what I just thought I heard.
I can't hear you, Daniel. Can you move your hand from your mouth? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, sorry about just trying to use the headphones. I just want to make sure that I've understood what I think I've just heard correctly, is that this administration is potentially making cuts for a future administration. Is that correct? I just want to be clear on that.
Look, I think people need to understand COVID has come along and put in play something which has literally affected local government finances. The government is saying to us in these exceptional situations, that is what an option we might need to do. COVID is an exceptional place. If there was no COVID, we would not be doing it or considering it. And I think that is a basic fact which you, Councillor, and other councillors need to take on board. We're dealing with the impact of COVID. This is an exceptional financial and societal issue, and the government has given this treatment because they haven't got the money to give to us in year for us to solve the issue. So yes, you are correct, and it's because of this situation called COVID. You remember, we produced a 3-year budget, sustainable budget in March the 2nd. COVID, or we went home at the end of March. It was that quick and that seismic.
Can I just also clarify the legal position here? Because I think that's important. Every year when council set the budget, the kind of working assumption is that is then what the council continues to spend year on year on year until a future council decides to do something different. So no decision, it's a fundamental principle of law that council can't make a decision that is then binding on a future council, but it is normal to set out proposals that if enacted would continue unless and until a future council decides to change those. So although the circumstances are extraordinary, I just want to make the very important point that the legal principle is exactly how things are normally operated.
Daniel, just a quick supplementary.
Yeah, just very quickly. Thank you for that, Conrad. But I do take a bit of exception at you taking a normal run-of-the-mill every year budget process that happens normally and equating that to forward projections and cuts into potentially another administration's budget. That, for me, is where the two don't marry. For me, I would have thought, and I am a layman, that it's up to us to deal with the financial pressures that we see now before us and to make sure that we bequeath unto the future administration or iterations.
Do you know the cost of COVID?
Sorry?
Do you know how much COVID has cost us this year?
Well, you haven't told us it. You've told us you're going to tell us in November.
Well, in the report.
Sorry, I've not finished.
Okay, can I bring some order? Can I bring some order to this section? Right, one person at a time, please.
Can I finish?
Now, yes, you may, Councillor.
Thank you.
Yes, go on.
My point is that I find it very difficult that we are essentially laying up future issues for other councillors who may take over from us in the future. And in terms of Councillor Paul's, interjection there, do I know the cost of COVID? I would know the cost of COVID if you tell us tonight. You wouldn't tell us. No,
Councillor Paul, I haven't recognized you coming in now. Can you come to the chair?
Yeah, but you said you won't tell us until it goes to cabinet. You said no, but you said that's okay. Well,
okay.
Look, Chair, when I can speak, then I'll speak.
Can everyone please? I need to take control. Right, one person at a time. Look, Councillor Lee Parker, I will give you just allow you briefly to round up your remarks, and then Councillor Paul can come in, because the question is of a political nature. Only he should answer it because it's political. Conrad could only come in with the technical aspect of that. Okay, so Daniel, do you want to?
Look, I think I've made my point. My point is simple. I just don't think that we should be tying the hands of future councillors of this borough. I don't think it's right. And the second point of Councillor Paul's, that do I know the cost of COVID? As I said, I don't until that paper comes to cabinet in December, unless he wants to tell me now. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Terry, do you want to respond?
Yes, Chair. In the papers submitted to you, in paragraph 3.3, 3.4, Councillor Lee Parker can see the numbers in there.
Can you read the numbers out for the members of the public? Cannot see. Okay, wait, just a minute. The members of the public cannot see those papers and the numbers. So can you read it out for us, please? What is the number?
Chair?
Yes.
The number is here, and Councillor Paul is correct that it does talk about £29 million. However, we've just had a whole discussion from Councillor Peppiatt talking about that number being out of date. Councillor Paul agreed it was out of date and said...
The number, let's be careful about out of date. We are here talking about period 6. Let's check it. Period 6.
Can I politely ask that you allow the member to finish? And Daniel,
I apologise, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. You have to be very brief, and I'm going to move on, Daniel.
Chair, I tell you what, look, I think everyone gets the picture here. We all get the point. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Lester.
Yeah, I think I want to give an alternative analysis. Broadly, and that's why I've concentrated on table 3.1, COVID grant is equal to COVID expenditure, give or take a couple of million. The main issue is that over the past number of years, we've had budget reductions which have not been implemented. What it strikes me is that we are implementing those budget reductions, the 9 million, next year, the following year, and in the second year of a new administration. I think that's what's happening here. I know we've got COVID. I know it's incredibly fluid, but the reason that we're in this situation is that in terms of budget reductions over the past 3 years, the administration hasn't grasped the nettle. If you look at previous administrations, we've had loads and loads of nettles that we've had to grasp and sort out. Often I say we are where we are, but that's my analysis of where we are.
Because you have brought that in again, because that is basically where Councillor Daniel Lee Parker was going. So I don't want to waste too much time on that, but I'm going to allow Terry to come in briefly, and we need to move on because we already had enough airing on this. So Terry, can you come in briefly?
What I would say, I don't agree with that analysis. As you would know, Lester, being the previous incumbent of this position, there were some issues I carry over from the last administration which were not grasped, and the nettle was firmly not gripped. Okay, let me finish. Let me finish.
No, I'm not having it. I am fed up. I am fed up with this administration blaming the
Can I bring some order, please?
Let me finish.
Let the member finish. Yeah.
And there were, so I wouldn't sit there and say we have not grasped the nettle. There are things we've been dealing with. There were savings given to one source, which were never ever going to be met because they had no means whatever to be met. Okay, so I've never, gone over into history, but I wouldn't want to leave the general public thinking that on day one of this administration there was a completely clean situation of savings all lined up to be delivered. That was not the case, Lester. Okay, so let's be clear about that.
Okay, now that you finish your political bits, gentlemen, I've been patient. I've given you a lot of latitude to do your political discourse. We now move on to some technicality now. Daniel.
Just very, very quickly, exactly what just happened there between Councillor Hudson and Councillor Paul is exactly the reason why I have grave misgivings about us carrying debt and these savings over to a potentially another administration. This is exactly, Councillor Paul, what I'm talking about, is that somebody's going to be sitting here in a couple of years' time saying that Councillor Paul stored up this issue for me and I'm having to deal with Councillor Paul's issues. And this is exactly the reason why I say it doesn't sound to me like a good game plan. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, it's Conrad speaking here. I'm sorry I think it's really important that I just make a kind of important legal clarification.
Okay, officer, go on.
I'm worried that I've got a point.
It's a political decision.
So, with respect, Councillor Clark, if I could just make the point, because
I said it's a political decision. It's a political decision.
What I'm saying yet.
Okay.
You would allow me to make the point. I think I will actually, I hope, clarify that position and that distinction.
Okay, Conrad, before you go on, The political aspect of this discourse or this bit should be dealt with by Councillor Paul. Can I remind members that Councillor Paul is coming to see us on the 24th, when we would have this kind of discussion. Okay, this is not the place for this discussion right now. Members would have Councillor Paul there and we can have it. The technical aspect of this monitoring that we must get on with, I've given members some latitude on the political bits of it, but I prefer that to be dealt with on the 24th rather than now, when members and Terry can have that discourse as much as they want. Okay, so can we just focus on the technical bit for now, please?
The point that I think it's important for me to emphasise, so that everyone understands what is the legal constraints on the position. If one just takes that table that we've been looking at, and the bottom line number there, the overspend of 9 million, 8.93%, it's called 9 million for each. The advice is that it is lawful and consistent with normal practice to plan to recover that over a period of time, 3 years. That does not require members to not exercise political judgment. If members wish to propose budgets to recover that in a single year to avoid the situation that Councillor Lee Parkway presents, that's an entirely lawful political choice. I'm merely saying that the advice that is consistent with local government law and legislation, including the new legislation that government has laid in respect of coronavirus, is that it is financially reasonable to plan to recover that over 3 years. And that's the important distinction that I want to draw between the technical advice and the political discussion you want to have. I think it's important that I make that point.
Thank you, and the minutes would reflect your advice. Thank you, Conrad. Time is bearing heavily against us. It's now 20:43, and we have other aspects of this to do. I'm going to curtail that, but can I remind members that we are meeting again on the 13th, the 20th, and the 24th. So we have 3 sessions of Budget Working Party where we would talk nothing but budget, budget, budget. Okay. So if what we haven't got to do tonight, we will do it on the 13th, the 20th, and the 24th. So I would draw this to a close in the next few minutes. Is there any pressing issues that we need to discuss now?
Chair, you mentioned a series of dates, which I recognise, I think it's the 24th, but you've got some other dates you mentioned. Have they been sent through?
You are, unless you want to come, Terry, the 13th, it's the departmental budget.
Oh, right. Okay, fine.
But I can extend.
That's why I don't recognise it, because I'm not meant to be there. That's great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
I can extend the formal invites to you now, Terry.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Chair,
yes, go on.
Could I just? I know that Councillor Paul isn't coming to those, and quite rightly too. One of the things we identified last year was the lack of coordination between the various departments and the central finance. Will there be, even though you aren't coming, Councillor Paul, will there be a consistency of message so that what they're saying you understand, as it were, so that we don't have to play ping pong between the department's understanding of the cuts or the budget situation and your understanding of what's in the department's budget situation? I understand you don't, and quite rightly, don't need to come, but I do want a consistency of approach across the board.
Councillor Peppiat, you make an absolute on-point intervention. On that note, I have asked scrutiny officers to provide, for a number of occasions, a full list of all the meetings in one place, so I can see what meetings are in place and what support you need. To date, I haven't had that one piece of paper to facilitate that. So I'm absolutely with you, Quentin Peppiat. And perhaps through the chair, could I have, and I have been asking for this, chair, for a number of months now, just a single sheet of what meetings are in place, who's been invited, what the key lines of inquiry is. So therefore, I can take a helicopter view and meet the challenge which Quentin Pepiat, Councillor Quentin Pepiat has said. So that was a challenge, Chair, perhaps through you and your officers.
Officer Adrian May, can I request that Councillor Paul is given that information before end of business tomorrow? The information is...
We can confirm that.
Yeah.
And can I just confirm, Chair, will it have the date, who's been invited, and the key line of inquiry on that piece of paper?
Okay. Yes, that's noted. And Adrian, can we provide that to Terry and the directorate by end of business tomorrow?
Yes, Councillor. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. We need to move on. What I would ask, although Terry and Conrad is not required to come on the 13th and the 20th, it might be advisable, if they so wish, to send an officer from the directorate who might be able to assist the other service delivery directorate. It's something to be considered.
Chair, can I, obviously,
executive members being scrutinised.
Yeah, but the members are, the executive members should be scrutinised, not the executive director.
Okay, well, I hear you, we move on. That's okay, Terry.
I'm not clear, Chair, on what was just said, but anyway, yeah.
We may have unfortunately lost Councillor McCormick.
Oh,
Or is it?
I
very
think,
sad.
No, you're still.
Yeah.
I think I will take over from, the chair is back.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what was.
Okay, was I speaking to myself there? Was I disconnected?
You were speaking to yourself, Chair.
Yeah. For about 20 seconds, Chair.
Yeah.
It was very entertaining.
Chair.
Probably for about 20 seconds, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Adrian.
Chair, can I ask a question? Obviously, I don't know about the 13th meeting. I don't know what's happening there, and I don't know about the other one. So I'm completely in the dark. I don't know what I've been asked to do, and I'm not taking the challenge up, Chair. I'm unsure what I've been asked to do.
Okay, Terry, I hear you, and we can have a discussion tomorrow. But it's the directorates that we will be, and the directorates that we would be talking to. It's housing and one source, public health, and adult social care. Okay, we do need to move on. Time is going pressing. Thank you, officers, for coming. Thank you, Terry and team. Thank you, Conrad. You can stay on if you so wish. Be careful, if you stay on, you might be asked a financial question.
How much we lost on parking?
Okay. Because time is against us, item 7, it's scrutiny committee meetings summary. Can I ask that we defer this one and move on to something more substantive, which is the protocol that most members would want to partake in? Can I ask that we defer item 7?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank
Noted,
you.
Chair.
Okay. Item 8. Item 8, I will be introducing a protocol, proposed protocol for scrutiny, overview and scrutiny and working arrangements. For a very long time, as long as I can remember, there haven't been a formal document spelling out, or a document that we would like to see from a scrutiny perspective, and also, I suppose, for the executive in how we work together. Chairs of Overview and Scrutiny sat with officers, Jessica Crow, and of scrutiny officers, and we came up with the first draft of what we propose to be a working document and protocol. That will be going to the executive for comment, and it will also be discussed with overview members at a later date. This is just an initial introduction to it, where members would be allowed to have input into it. And also we would take it to another place where members can have an input into the document. So this is a chance for members just to have an initial conversation about it, to give a steer in where we should go, and then we would take it to the executive and elsewhere. I've noticed Sarah, I've noticed Susan. Susan first, because I've seen Susan first and then Sarah.
I think I'm
Can
going to
I just need clarification. Have you finished with us now?
You can stay. Yes.
I don't want to stay, but
Yes,
I've been here
Sarah.
since 7 o'clock waiting for my questions.
Yes, Sarah, I'm finished. Thank you.
Oh, hallelujah.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Colleen, for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Okay, Susan.
We've also got Jessica still with us. Should she still be with us as an officer, or does she need to be released as well?
Jessica is the brain behind the technicality of the protocols. She needs to be
I've come
here.
back special. Come back specially for this.
And we've also still got, I think, like Mini, are you here with Budget Working Party? Because you're released as well, aren't you?
I might add as well.
No.
Yeah, and Lester.
Okay. Susan, thanks for the help. But as members, I would welcome a members' participation, be it Budget Working Party or Overview and Scrutiny. The more
Okay, I'm just trying to release them.
I don't think they need to be released. Okay, but let's tell that many, Quentin, if you want, you can go. But if you want input into this bit of it, you're free to stay. Okay, Jessica, is there anything you would like to say regarding the protocol?
Not very much, Chairman. I hope it's self-explanatory. I think, as you said, it's an attempt to put down in paper some sort of rules of engagement and to help sort of just clarify expectations and improve the working relationship and understanding of the different roles and responsibilities of the executive and scrutiny in the governance of the local authority. So some of it is capturing things that have begun to happen anyway, such as the regular meetings that you have, Chair, with the Mayor and Chief Executive. So it's trying to codify those, but also to kind of just clarify expectations around provision of information and requests for executive members to attend scrutiny. So hopefully it will benefit all concerned by just bringing some clarity for all sides in what the role and purpose of scrutiny is. And so we, in drafting it with chairs, we tried to start from the purpose and principles, and then sort of emphasize how we see those sort of playing out, and then to provide some more practical stuff around provision of information, around the work programme, what happens to your reports, and also to clarify the role of the statutory scrutiny officer, which is a statutory role, but which didn't seem to have been sort of formally set out in the constitutions to date. So that's all I'll say by way of introduction, Chair.
Thank you, Susan, then Ken.
Right, I came back with a whole list of points off the back of this. Firstly, I think it's so important that in terms of measuring the executive's respect for scrutiny, which I think got mentioned, I feel it's absolutely vital that outside of emergencies, never again are the executive able to conclude a major consultation such as the decision as to the second option on the ballot when a scrutiny investigation into said issue is still live. Secondly, I think I really like the idea of a recommendation tracker, but more than that, I feel that scrutiny should be able to point to the visible areas of impact it's had in a year. I've never been party to a scrutiny discussion around flood risk. Is this something we need to have? In terms of widening independent membership, and this is kind of political, but we are a Labour administration. Should we have trade union representation? according to the issues sort of being considered. And I think 2 weeks ahead of a publication date just seems to be giving the executive far too much time. I think it's completely ridiculous. I think they should have 2 weeks total. I think that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Susan. We note that, and there's some very useful points there, and they would be, we see where they can fit into the protocol. Ken, then Alisha.
Yeah, well, I welcome this, that we do have a written protocol on how we deal and how we perform as a scrutiny body. I also think it's important that we should also look at what I consider to be pre-scrutiny, being more involved in policy making rather than being reactive when basically we come in afterwards, for a call in or whatever. So I think we should really start to look at that very, very seriously, that we have pre-scrutiny and look at those big issues before the cabinet make decisions, so we can feed into that through scrutiny itself. Also, the other issue I'd like to raise here, and I think this is an important, what the other issue I'd like to raise, which I think is an important one. A few weeks ago, we were about to have a meeting of a number of leaders of councils, and basically at the last minute, it was called off on the basis, as I understood it, that we were being told that we were being whipped on this particular item and we could only vote in one particular way. Now, I want that to be clarified, because that's outside my terms of reference, because how can you whip a scrutiny panel? A scrutiny is there to actually ask questions and monitor the executive. And all of a sudden we get told we have to make a decision based on what we were whipped on for another meeting. I don't understand. I want that clarified, that never ever again are we told by our whip, by chief whip, whoever it was, and by the monitoring officer, as I understand it at the time, that we were whipped and we could only make one decision. I don't understand. I think it needs to be clarified.
Chair.
Okay. Yes.
Can I come in on this point raised by Councillor Clark? But
you can, but I have
appropriate, Chair.
No, I have to do some housekeeping before you could come in. It's 2 minutes to 9. I wanted to conclude by 9 o'clock, so I need to move standing order. Now, I'm only going to ask you to be moved. Wait, let me finish. 10 minutes, because if I give members an inch, they will take a yard.
Chair, sorry, can I come in, please?
Yeah,
can I ask that it's extended for longer, just in case we need it, because this protocol is quite important, and I don't think 10 minutes will be enough time to flesh it out properly, Chair. So I move that you go to the 9:30 limit. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I tell you for why, Councillor, I hear what you said. This is just an initial discussion. The protocol would come back to us formally. It will come back to us formally. I just wanted to introduce it. But I hear what you say. If members are willing to go to 9:30, it's up to members, but I will conclude before if I can. Okay.
I'm happy to go to 9:30.
Agreed.
Okay. Right. Councillor, you wanted to come in with something. The chief, Adam, I know you want to come in. I will allow you to come in. Daniel.
Okay, thank you. My question is to Jessica, and it's just in regards to the working groups that are being worked up with the executive, where they'll be working with a number of backbench councillors in regards to looking at issues before they come to cabinet. It struck me when I read the paper that it was literally pre-decision scrutiny in a nutshell. And I just wanted to work out, had you spoke to the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny about this and worked out how these two functions are going to marry together in terms of the council's operations, Jessica? Thank you.
Do you want me to answer that one specifically, Chair?
Yes, you can.
Yeah,
you may.
Yeah. They are different. I mean, it's quite common in a number of councils to have, for cabinets and executive members to have advisory groups, and it's my understanding that this is an initiative of the executive, and those groups are very much advisory groups for the cabinet members responsible. So it's not something that officers have been involved in. It's an initiative of the executive. So it's not quite the same as pre-scrutiny. Although I do take your point that the sort of things they might be expected to do, as I understand it, are similar.
Chair.
Yes,
if
yes,
I
go
may, thank you for that, Jessica, and I really do appreciate your response. However, I must kindly disagree with you, because if it was an advisory group, as you said, and it had nothing to do with officers, then I would have expected it to be done through the Labour group and through the political means of the borough. Instead, it was done through officers. So what you've just said to us here doesn't quite tally with my understanding and interpretation of an email that I received regarding these working groups. So once again, I just want to clarify. You say they're advisory, nothing to do with officers, but yet still everything is being communicated by officers. I'm a bit confused.
So they're advisory, but I mean it's within the executive's prerogative to set up such advisory groups, and officers will support that, but they're not a scrutiny body, so they are separate from scrutiny.
Okay,
sorry, Jessica. Sorry, just very quickly, Chair. Sorry, just very quickly, because I feel like I'm not really getting the answer. And that's fine. I'll give it one last go, and that's fine. My issue, Jessica, is not saying that they are a scrutiny body, because clearly they're not a scrutiny body. My initial question was, had you looked at the way in which they may overlap and the marrying up of the two functions? And we've got no way to answer that. I'll take a written answer if you want. I don't want to hold up the meeting any further. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm very happy to look at it. They had come from a separate place, but we can make sure certainly that there isn't any duplication.
Okay. In terms of that, I looked at the emails that went out, and as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, obviously we do not want our function to be replicated somewhere else. I hear what Councillor is saying. Obviously, Scrutiny does not want its function to be replicated. I took it at face value because I saw that it says an advisory, and obviously, I know that any executive can get an advisory body or a set of members or external source to advise them. But then that's just it, advising. And if they want to have policy forums or focus groups and so on to advise, then that is it. But the council is right. That should just be that, to advise, but not to scrutinize, just to give advice on policies. Yeah, that is what
just a point, Chair, if I may. When I saw the detail, it also said that the scrutiny chairs would be members of this body, so including yourself and your three chairs. So why is that? Why is that included for the scrutiny chairs to be members of that body?
We straight. Okay, can I just respond quickly? We strain from the protocol that we're supposed to be discussing. However,
I think it's important.
Okay, but however, can I just say something? I don't think scrutiny chairs, especially chair, should sit on such a body, because we have overall responsibility to go every and any which way within the council in terms of scrutinizing policies, and etc. And therefore, we cannot be seen to be sitting on certain function and then scrutinize it later on.
Chair, that wasn't the case. Sorry to be a pain. Councillor Clark, what you're referring to is the formulation of a working group to look at the committee structure in the council, and that's what it says scrutiny chairs are going to be a part of. It was not to do with what we were just talking about now. I just want to bring that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Daniel.
Very kind of you. Very kind of you.
Susan.
It's just a really quick one, and I'm really glad you've mentioned the committee group to look at the committee model. I know I'm wandering off track, but it's really important. I've had colleagues say to me that this committee model is not going to have a place for scrutiny. And I think one of the things we need to make absolutely sure of is that it damn well does, basically.
Okay, that is, you don't have to answer that now, Jessica, because this is protocol discussion. that is another, for another place. But Susan, we note your concern. Right, we still need to keep it at protocol. Is there any contribution to in the protocol, Alicia?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Chair. I think I had few points, and I'm quite sort of like kind of lost in the middle, but I wanted to echo what Councillor Clark has previously said about independence of the Scrutiny Commission. And on that note, I would like to say thank you to Jessica for I wanted to say thank you to Jessica for the draft, which is quite sort of like detailed with the information, and especially the working relationship between scrutiny and executive. So I wanted to thank you.
My internet connection is unstable. Sorry.
I think I'll leave it to that.
Sorry, I didn't hear a word you said because my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I am unable to respond to anything you said, Alisha. Was it to me or to someone else?
I would say a special thank you to Jessica for what she has done. And I wanted to say I agree with the points made by Councillor Clark previously about the Scrutiny Commission to be independent rather than under pressure or getting instruction from the executive. So yeah.
Okay, right. So I owe it to the whip to come in, and then I will say something also on the matter. Anam, are you now speaking as a whip, or are you speaking as a member of this committee?
Unmute.
Can I be heard now? Okay, brilliant. First of all, Chair, thank you for letting me come in. First of all, I'm here as ONS member of the committee. I'm not here as the majority group chief whip, but there is a question that needs to be addressed. So I will address this as an ordinary member of this committee. But what I will say, as chief whip, I do not remember contacting any members of Scrutiny or writing to any members of Scrutiny as the chief whip to tell them that you will be whipped, your decisions will be whipped, because the Scrutiny Commission is actually a statutory quasi-body, which is pretty much independent, and the whips do not have any jurisdiction in, I think the statute is quite clear in terms of whipping an independent statutory quasi-body. So in that sense, it's quite clear. But I can assure you from the majority group chief whip, as the majority group chief whip, I have not written to anybody, I have not spoken to anybody. If somebody has, or somehow someone has done something or said something or written something, then I would like to know about that in a different place, in another place.
Okay, right. I'm going to just comment briefly on this because it's about protocol, but seeing that it came up, I just shed some light on it. You and I had a discussion. We talked about the business in hand at the time. And yes, you did not say we will be whipped during our discussion as a committee. We could have a conversation with the witnesses, and we could, wherever that conversation go, we could have gone with that conversation, etc. So we weren't whipped during the actual meeting itself. However, where we were going to be made whipped, and I've spoken with the chief executive also, because and there was a whip involved, and the whip applies to what scrutiny members do when they come to full council. So scrutiny might, for instance, have said, just an argument's sake, scrutiny might have said, we agree with the leader and cabinet model. And I might have stood up at council and says, this is the recommendation of scrutiny. That is the advice I was given. However, when it comes to vote as a member, I had to follow the group whip. And that is all I would say. So therefore, what scrutiny does wasn't particularly whipped during our time, but as a member, it was different. But I would move on because this is about protocol. And what Councillor Masters have said, it's been noted, and the concerns of member has been noted. Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
Chair, I think just to the benefit of the committee members, that what we need to make clear and distinctively clear, the whip's jurisdiction is in the council chambers, not in scrutiny committee meetings. And if they do have any remit, it will be purely based on the conduct. Like if somebody is making derogatory comments, maybe racist remarks or something, then we can step in there. But then, so will standards. So Other than that, we have no locus in terms of whipping in a scrutiny decision. Okay. But in the council chamber, it's a different matter. Yeah, so I just want to give assurances to any members of the scrutiny committee that, you know, feel free to make your decisions independently without fearing a whip. However, in the council chamber, it is a different ball game, and how you conduct your business is your prerogative.
Okay, Jessica, can before you come back, Daniel, Jessica, can we revise or put an addition into the this protocol regarding whipping and counsel, because it's important. And it's important, I see you, Daniel, I'm going to bring you in. It's important because of the situation that arose then. So basically my discussion with the monitoring officer and with the whip at the time is that as a scrutiny, we could have had witnesses and we could have had a discussion that were contrary to the position of group. So as a scrutiny, the scrutiny chair can get up and says, this is what the scrutiny committee recommends. Scrutiny committee recommends A. However, if we are whipped from another place, by another place, when it comes to vote as an individual member, then the whip applies to us as an individual member. And you see, so a chair could stand up and give a recommendation and then vote against his recommendation on the other hand. And that is the position. And so therefore, we need to put that in the protocol and we need to get some clarity on it. So scrutiny is understand how the whipping arrangements works when they're whipped by another place. Daniel.
Thank you. To be fair, I'm not necessarily sure this is the right place, but we are speaking about protocols. My issue and my question, oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Islam? Yeah. My question is not so much about what the chair would do, but actually what we as scrutineers would do. And I think this is quite an important point, because that was one of the reasons why I wasn't wholly comfortable sitting in that session, because we'd already been whipped on this issue. And I was worried that any remarks I may make in that scrutiny session would then potentially put me at odds with the whip. And that was my problem as a scrutineer. Now, for me, I just think we need to make sure that never again are we in that position where there's uncertainty. And I need to know, well, I think we all need to know, if there is a decision made by council, if we are in a scrutiny position and scrutinizing it, are we wholly free from the whip in our comments in a scrutiny meeting, or are we still bound by the whip? And that's where the ambiguity stepped in. And I think that's where the confusion set in. And with a lack of clarity, unfortunately, chaos does abound. And I think that's what's happened here. So just for clarification, I think it's not so much what the chair would say. I think it's more what we as individual members would even ask in our teasing out of information from witnesses could potentially put us at odds with the whip. And there was no sort of clarification on that. Thank you.
I would not bring you back in here because it's not a discussion. We would have ample time because I've asked Jessica to introduce this particular aspect into the protocol. We'll get monitoring officer advice, etc.
Yeah, all I was going to say that
just 1 minute, Anam. So we will get monitoring officers advice, so it will be clear. And I think Councillor Lee Parker put it this succinctly. We don't want to be in a position because as scrutineers, sometimes we lead witness, sometimes we cross-examine witness. We go sometimes in areas where the executive might be contrary to executive policies or whipping arrangements in another place. We need to know where we stand. It needs to be formalized. Okay, John.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to point out, in fact, the chair explained what happened very well. It was an anomalous situation because the scrutiny meeting took place between Labour Group meeting and Council when the vote had been taken and therefore with the Labour Group. But this only arose because the scrutiny meeting was postponed. It's a situation that shouldn't have arisen because it was postponed, and the only date that could be fitted in was between the two meetings. That's where the problem arose, and in fact, it's something that could always be avoided in future.
I missed most of that, John, because of the interference. I'm going to Daniel as the last person on this.
Yeah, just very quickly. Just very quickly, I get what Councillor Whitworth is saying, that it's anomalous and that, potentially it's never going to happen again. But the fact is it did happen. And I think we need to have a protocol in place. It's almost like an insurance policy, just to make sure that in the event of an anomalous situation occurring, this is what we will do. I agree with him, though. In my 2 and a bit years of being a councillor, this hasn't happened before. And I doubt it probably will happen again. But just in case, we just got to be sure. Thank you, Chair.
I agree. The protocol just speaks to something like this, and so if it happens in future, we know how to deal with it. Okay. Thank you. I haven't seen any other member. We are going to have another session to look at this. It may not be in a formal scrutiny arrangement. It may just be an informal meeting of scrutiny members where we can look at this. But we are going to have another session. It's going to go to the executive and other stakeholders to have a say. And Jessica is going to add the other bit in the whipping arrangement situation. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this session. I didn't realize it was going to engender so much discussion. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'll produce another draft and share it.
Okay, then, thank you very much indeed. We have just a few more minutes before we have about 13 minutes before we conclude. So can I ask that item 19 be deferred?
Agreed.
Okay. Appointments. We have, Richard, can you read the appointment?
Yes, Chair. There's a appointment available on the Education, Children and Young People's Commission, which has been filled by Councillor Tahora, if she's happy to take that role. Many thanks.
You did express an interest to join the Children and Young People Scrutiny Commission some months ago, and we are now formally appointing you to that commission.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. Yes,
okay.
I'm happy. Yes.
It's welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Overview and scrutiny work program. Item 11. The work program is notice we have one more meeting this year, and we will have an informal meeting to look at the protocol again. So can I take it as noted? Can we note the work program?
Great.
Roger.
Chair, I just want to clarify, the next meeting, you have community neighbourhoods on the agenda, and you also have environment and transport again. You've had Councillor Assa a number of times last year and in 2nd of September and this evening. Do you feel you want to look at a different aspect of the executive rather than Councillor Assa's portfolio again?
Let's take that outside of here and we'll deal with it then.
Can I just say, Chair?
Okay.
Thanks, if I may, Chair, I think that particular portfolio, as we know, is becoming quite a big debate with our residents at the moment. And I think we should ask him to come back again to talk about it. We've had 2 consultations on the matter, which seems to have been totally ignored by him. I just think we need to have a chat about it, because I don't know about the other members, but I'm getting lambasted by people, residents, up in arms about what we're doing. And I just think we need to talk to him again to let him know what our residents are saying about this now, and what, especially with the corona kicking in again, and obviously some people are going to have to pay 200 quid to park a car, and I know it's something we want in terms of air pollution and all the rest of it. I agree, but I think we need to have him come back.
Okay, the point has been made, Ken. Right.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, Roger, there are other issues apart from budgeting that we need to talk to him about. So we will discuss this outside of this meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Item 12, the forward plan. Is there any Observation, any contribution on the forward plan? No. Can I ask, normally we just put the forward plan there, and it might be useful if we just put some of the items of the forward plan, not the entire, just the key items that is coming up, so that members can look at that and see. Because
that'd be very helpful, Chair.
Meetings after meetings, members do not make any observation or comment on the forward plan. So maybe if it's item driven, then it might stimulate questions and interest. Okay, thank you. And last but not least, is the date of the next meeting. It's the 9th of December. Okay. Now, we will be very busy. In fact, from June, July, we haven't stopped right through the summer. It's been very, very busy for scrutiny. And we're going to be busy yet again because we have, apart from our other scrutiny commissions and the COVID task and finish, we now have budget working party coming up, which will be 3 meetings this side of Christmas. And then we have all the meetings in January and February that we continue. So it's going to be a very, very busy period for us. I should thank the officers for all the work that they've been putting into facilitating these meetings, the agendas, etc., etc. So thank you very much. I know we've been making a lot of demands on your time of late. So I do. But the same thing, you were making a lot of demands on us in terms of reading these papers. And please note what Councillor Lee Parker said in terms of getting the papers on a timely basis is something that we've always asked for. Hopefully the protocol would lay out exactly when we should get these papers and we can expect them. And for me, I had to print papers, and he's asking, and other members would like the papers to be printed, especially during these Zoom sessions. So what officers should do is ask members who want the agendas to be printed. The audit committee agendas are normally printed, and other agendas are normally printed and sent out. So if scrutiny members are asking for it, please can we try to facilitate that? Okay, Daniel.
Sorry, just have to unmute myself. I just want to make a point as well, Chair. This is not to go against that smarter working initiative that we all agreed to as councillors. It's just a provision in the time of COVID where we have to be on our laptop as well as, trying to look at things. Once we go back to face-to-face meetings, then realistically, there's no need for any of us to have printed papers. We can look at our laptops, but at the moment, it is just proving very, very difficult to run a business. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, right. So with that, I now bring the meeting to a close. And it's now 21:24. Thank you all for participating.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Well done, Chair.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chair.
thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
No.
Thank you.
Richard, can you stop the live streaming, please? Or Roger?